Hello everyone. Today we are going to start the ecosystem part 2. Last class we have seen the introduction. In this class we are going to see the functions of ecosystem. So if we talk about functions of ecosystem helps in maintaining the productivity. It helps in decomposition reactions. It helps in energy flow. It also helps in maintaining the biological processes like food chains, food webs, maintaining ecological succession, and also helps in nutrient cycling. So in this class, we are going to see this all in detail. So coming to productivity, what is productivity? Productivity is basically what? The rate of biomass production. How biomass is produced, the rate, how it is produced, we call it productivity. Let me explain you. Suppose this is sun rays. As you all know, out of all the sun rays, it is only 2 to 10%, we call it photosynthetically active radiation, is being utilized by plants. And what plants will do? Plants will synthesize food using sunlight, carbon dioxide, water, right? And this synthesis of glucose, or this amount of organic matter, this organic matter or biomass produced per unit area, organic matter or biomass produced per unit area over a time period, is what we call productivity. Clear? Yes. So if we define productivity, see here, a constant input of solar energy is the basic requirement for an ecosystem to function and sustain. Primary production is defined as the amount of biomass or organic matter produced per unit area over a time period by plants during photosynthesis. Primary productivity depends on the plant species inhabiting a particular area. It also depends on a variety of environmental factors like availability of nutrients, photosynthetic capacity of plants. Therefore, it varies in different types of ecosystem. So basically, this productivity, how organic matter is produced by plants, it depends on certain environmental factors like availability of nutrients, the potential of photosynthetic potential of the plants. So ultimately, if we define productivity, it is basically the rate of biomass production. We call it what? We call it productivity. Clear? So if you see this productivity, this can be divided into two parts. One we call the GPP, that is gross primary productivity, and another one we call the NPP, that is net primary productivity. And this is what? Gross primary productivity. Now, what is gross primary productivity? Gross primary productivity of an ecosystem is the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. Gross primary productivity is what? How the organic matter is being produced by plants, we call the GPP, right? And what is NPP? That is net primary productivity. See, a considerable amount of gross primary productivity is utilized by plants in respiration. So that gross primary productivity minus respirational loss leads to the generation of net primary productivity. So net primary productivity is the available biomass for the consumption to heterotroph. Secondary productivity is defined as the rate of formation of new organic matter by consumers. So here we have to focus on three things. First is the productivity. So what is productivity? Now what is productivity? If we define productivity, it is basically the rate of biomass production. The rate of biomass production. If you say productivity, see, this is sun rays. Out of only 2 to 5% of photosynthetically active radiation is being utilized by plants to produce glucose, right? And this glucose is what? It is a organic matter produced by plants per unit area, and this is what we call productivity. Clear? And if we see productivity, it is of two types. If you see productivity, it is of how many types? Two types. What are the two types? the two types of productivity is, one is GPP, we call it gross primary productivity, and another is NPP, that is net primary productivity. Now what is gross primary productivity? If we talk about gross primary productivity, it is what? The amount of biomass produced by plant, amount of organic matter or biomass produced by plants. We call it what? Gross primary productivity. So if you see here, if you come back to this diagram, this sun rays is absorbed by plants and they produce glucose. So this total organic matter, total glucose produced by, total biomass or total glucose produced by plants, what we call the gross primary productivity, right? Now out of gross primary productivity, what will happen? There will be utilization of some energy for plants. Plants will utilize some amount of energy from the entire biomass produced. So the one which plants use, we call the respirational loss. Respirational loss. If you subtract the energy which is produced, which is utilized by plant for its respiration from the gross primary productivity, then it leads to the production of NPP, that is net primary productivity. That means what? Out of total biomass generated, out of total biomass produced, plants, out of total biomass produced, plants will utilize some for respiration. So net productivity is equals to gross primary productivity minus respirational loss. Minus what? Respirational loss is what? NPP. Clear? Yes, everyone clear? Now next, another thing we need to say, secondary productivity. Let me write it here. If we talk about secondary productivity, what is secondary productivity? Secondary productivity. What is secondary productivity? It is basically the amount of biomass produced by consumer. What is secondary productivity? It is the amount of biomass produced by consumer. We call it secondary productivity. Clear? Am I clear? Yes, this is all about productivity. Coming to decomposition. So what is decomposition? Decomposition is what? The process of breaking down of complex matter. See, suppose this is a complex substance. What do you mean by complex substance? What do you mean by complex substance? Yes. Complex substance. That means what? Suppose a dead body. Dead body is having what? Proteins, carbohydrates, fats, everything is present. So this is what we call complex substance. When they die, suppose any dead leaf, what it contains? Complex substances, right? So when the decomposition is basically the conversion of this complex substances into simple ones. So how it is being converted to the simple ones? What is happening? The bacteria and virus, bacteria and fungus. What they do? This bacteria and fungus, they will convert the complex substances present in the dead body, that is protein, carbohydrates, fats, into simplest one. What is simplest one? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus, and it is released back into the environment. Released back into the environment. Clear? So this process we call the decomposition. So if we talk about decomposition, it is a breakdown of complex organic matter as well as in loosening of the soil. Similarly, decomposers break down complex organic matter into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water and nutrients, and the process is called decomposition. So decomposition is what? It is a breakdown of complex organic matter into inorganic substances. The process which I defined just now. Clear? Complex substances, organic matter is being converted into inorganic and are released back into the environment. Dead plant remains such as leaves, bark, flowers, dead remains of animals including fecal matter are used as a raw material for decomposition. The important steps in the process of decompositions are fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humidification and mineralization. So we will see one by one what are those. Coming to detrivores. Detrivores example art form break down the detritus into smaller particles. This process is called fragmentation. So leaching. What is leaching? If we define leaching, it is a process of extraction of solids. Process of extraction of solids from solvent. We call it what? Leaching. Clear? Water soluble inorganic nutrients go down into the soil horizon and get precipitated as unavailable salt. So this is the extraction of solid from solvent. We call it leaching. Clear? Coming to the catabolism. What is catabolism? Catabolism is basically breakdown of complex organic matter. Breakdown of complex organic matter, we call it what? Catabolism. Coming to humidification. What is humidification? Humidification is what? It is a breakdown of organic materials. It is a breakdown of organic materials in soil, and it is, shall I write it here? Breakdown of organic materials in soil and compost leading to the formation of humus. Leading to the formation of humus. So what is humidification? It is a process of breakdown of organic materials in soil and compost leading to the formation of humus. We call it humidification. Now what is mineralization? Mineralization refers to the conversion of, what is mineralization? Mineralization can be defined as the what? As the conversion of organic matter, conversion of organic matter to minerals. Conversion of organic materials to minerals. We call it mineralization. The humus is further degraded by some microbes and release of inorganic nutrients occur by the process known as mineralization. Clear? Decomposition is largely an oxygen requiring process. That means what? It is a aerobic process. The rate of decomposition is controlled by chemical composition of detritus and climatic factors. Coming to the energy flow. So what is energy flow? Energy flow is what? Let me explain you. Suppose green plants prepare their own food, right? The green plants is being eaten up by deer and is eaten up by wolf. So what happened? The energy, if you see here, the energy is transferred from one organism to another. This is one organism, we call it producers, right? So producers say energy will go to consumer and again from consumer to this. So this is what we call energy flow. Clear? This is what we call energy flow. Now, the chemical energy of food is the main source of energy required by all living organisms. The energy is transmitted to different trophic levels along the food chain. This is each of this organism participating in the food chain, we call the trophic level. So what is trophic level? Each organism participating in the food chain. each organism participating in food chain. We call it what? Trophic level. Clear? So here the this energy flow is based on two different law of thermodynamics. So if this the energy which is being transferred from one trophic level to another, from one to another, and this energy transfer or flow of energy is dependent on two law of thermodynamics. This is first and this is second. What is the first law of thermodynamics states? It states that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only change from one form to another. Shall I give you the example? Light energy. Light energy is what? Solar energy. Solar energy is utilized by plants. Yes or no? It is what plants is doing. It is converting the light, solar energy, to chemical energy. It is converting the solar energy to chemical energy. Thus, here we can say this chemical energy, entire living organisms on earth is dependent on this chemical energy. Clear? So here you can see the application of the first law of thermodynamics, that is energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. It can only change from one form to another. So we are not creating energy. The plants are not creating energy. It is just transferring the energy, light energy, to chemical energy. Second law of thermodynamics states that as energy is transferred, more and more of energy is wasted. That means when energy is passed from one organism to another, let me tell you, see here, only 10% of energy is transferred. If this is 100 joule, 10% of 100 joule is how much? 10% of 100 joule is 10. So deer will get only 10 joule. And here wolf will get only 1 joule. So what about the remaining 90% of energy? 90% of energy will be lost in the atmosphere as heat. Lost as heat energy. Loss as heat energy. Clear? So here if you see the 90% of the energy, if you see more and more of it is wasted. Only 10% is transferred. Only 10% is transferred. What about remaining 90%? It is eliminated in the form of heat energy. Clear? So most of the sun radiation that falls on earth is usually reflected back into space by earth atmosphere. This effective radiation is termed as photosynthetically active radiation. Overall, we receive 40 to 50% of the energy having photosynthetically active radiations, and only around 2 to 10% of it is used by plants for the process of photosynthesis. Thus, this percent PAR supports the entire world as plants are producers in the ecosystem. Clear? The energy flow takes place via food chain and food web. During the process of energy flow in the ecosystem, plants being the producers absorb sunlight with the help of chloroplast, and a part of it is transformed into chemical energy and in the process of photosynthesis. This energy is stored in various organic products in plants and passed on to the primary consumers in the food chain, where the herbivores consumes the plants as food and convert chemical energy accumulated in plants product into kinetic energy. Degradation of energy will occur through its conversion into heat. That is what I explained, right? If this is a green plants, the deer which is eating green plants will get only 10% of energy. Remaining 90% will be eliminated in the form of what? Heat energy. Clear? And deer is being eaten up by wolf, so he will also get 10%. 90% will be eliminated out. Clear? So they then followed by the secondary consumers. When these herbivores are consumed by carnivore of the first order, further degradation will occur. This is what is the energy flow. Now you see this flow of energy, we call it what? Energy unidirectional, because it is going in one way, it is not coming back. So energy flow is what? Unidirectional flow. Clear? Based on the source of their nutrition or food, organisms occupy a specific place in the food chain that is known as the trophic level. So I already explained you about trophic level. What is trophic level? Each organism participating in the food chain, Each organism participating in the food chain is known as trophic level. Clear? So, producers belong to the first trophic level, herbivores to the second, and carnivores to the third. The important point to note is that amount of energy decreases at successive level. That means if green plants are producing, so green plants are producers, so suppose they have produced 100 joule of energy. So 10% of 100 joule is transferred to the earth. So that means how much percent will be transferred? Yes, 10 joule. Now again 10% of 10 joule will be transferred to carnivores, that is wolf, say 1 joule. So you see which is having higher amount of energy. This 100 joule is higher compared to 1 joule. Yes or no? So see, the amount of energy decreases at successive trophic level. That means the organism which is occupied in lower level of the trophic level, that has got highest energy. And here you see less number of energy. Clear? When any organism dies, it is converted to detritus or dead biomass that serves as an energy source for decomposers. Organisms at each trophic level depend on those at lower trophic level for their energy demands. Each trophic level has a certain mass of living material at a particular time called as the standing crop. So what is standing crop? The amount of energy present in each trophic level, amount of biomass present in each organism or living material at a particular time, we call it standing crop. Standing crop is measured as the mass of living organisms or the number in a unit area. The transfer of food energy from producers to a series of organisms with repeated eating and being eaten is known as food chain. So what is food chain? Food chain is transfer of food energy from producers. See, this is a food chain. Transfer of energy from producers through a series of organisms. See, herbivores to carnivores. To now when they die, decomposers will come. Yes or no? They will decompose the body. So now through this is what energy is being transferred from one organism to another through a series of food, through a series of organisms. Yes, with repeated eating and being eaten, that is what we call food chain. So food chain and energy flow are the functional properties of ecosystem which make them dynamic. The biotic and abiotic components of an ecosystem are linked through them. Clear? This is one food chain. Example of food chain. Example of food chain. Plankton eaten up by zooplankton. This is phytoplankton. Phytoplankton eaten up by zooplankton, eaten up by fish larvae, eaten up by small fish, eaten up by large fish or predator. Clear? So if you see what we have seen in the food chain, what exactly happens? See, food chain is what? Green plants will make their own food. Yes, by using, if this is sun, if this is sun, this sun energy will be utilized. Green plant will utilize sunlight, yes, and what it will produce? It will produce glucose. And this primary production of glucose, what we call it gross primary productivity. From here, the plants will utilize some amount and minus respiration loss, and what will happen? What will be remaining here? It will whatever is remaining, we call it NPP, that is net primary productivity. We call it net primary productivity. Clear? And this other organisms, the herbivores they are getting energy from this net primary productivity, right? And this carnivore, yes, then come decomposers, they will decompose the body. Clear? And releases back this complex carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus back into the environment. Clear? And this is what food chain, the organism. See, this part we call it food chain. And each of these organisms, what we call each of these organisms participating in the food chain, we call it trophic level. What we call trophic level. Clear? Now coming to the types of food chain. If we discuss about the types of food chain, there are two types of food chain: grazing food chain and detritus food chain. Grazing food chain means what? This type of food chain starts from the living green plants to grazing herbivores and onto carnivores. That means green plants has been utilized by herbivores organisms. Green plants has been utilized by herbivore organism for food and is taken up by carnivores, right? So this transfer of energy, which is starting from green plants ending at carnivores, what we call the grazing food chain. And what is detritus food chain? This type of food chain goes from dead organic matter into microorganisms, then to organisms which feed on detrivores and predators. These are called detrivore food chain. Clear? So we have studied two types of food chain. What are the two types of food chain? One is grazing food chain, another is detrivore food chain. Now what is grazing food chain? The one which starts from the green plants, we call it grazing food chain. And the one which starts with dead organic matter, dead organism, we call the detritus food chain. This is food web. What is a food web? A complex network of interconnected food chains of different trophic level in a bio community is termed as food web. See, in nature actually food chains exist in the form of food web. Individually, if we talk about, this is a food chain. This is number one is a food chain, number two is a food chain, right? But in nature, we cannot see one food chain, another food chain. In nature, all food chains are interconnected to each other. And that is what we call what? Food web. Clear? The complexity of any food web depends upon the diversity of organisms. Thus, each species of an ecosystem is indeed kept under some sort of a natural check so that the ecosystem may remain balanced, and this is significance of a food web. Significance of food chain and food web: it maintains the ecological balance, helps in biomagnification, that is a process in which the concentration of non-biodegradable material or any fertilizer accumulates in the food chain. As for example, human beings occupy the highest position in the trophic level, they get highly biomagnified, which is harmful. DDT, if you see, if you spray DDT, this DDT will enter into the food chain and it will pass on from one trophic level to another, and it will pass from one trophic level to another. Clear? Excess uses of this non-biodegradable chemical makes the soil over-nourished and its concentration increases and it passes along the food chain. Coming to ecological succession. Next class, we will see the ecological succession. In this class, I would like to end up in the food chain and food web. Thank you so much for giving your time.